Good afternoon, live from Toronto on the GBCAM network. This is the Chat Up Show, the show where we catch you up with the chat up of our weekly headlines. I'm your host, Elizabeth Aloyde, and I hope that you are ready to chat it up with me today. Now, as always, you know you can keep up with the GBCAM network in various ways. You can continue to listen and watch live 24/7 at www.gbcam.tv or www.gbcam.fm. You can also continue to watch us live on our free app available for all iOS and Android devices. Now, the great thing about this app is all you have to do is just search GBKM and you download it. You get everything that's available on our web station. So you get to listen and watch live 24/7, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Catch up on any past shows you may have missed. Check out our upcoming show schedule. Check out our breaking news tab to keep up with what's going on in the news world. And you will be notified every time we go live. So make sure you download our free GBKM app available for all iOS and Android devices today so you can take us on the go with you and you won't miss another live show again. You can also continue to watch us on Facebook and YouTube at GBCAM Network, where you can also continue to like, share, comment, and subscribe. You can also continue to keep up with us at the GBCAM Network by following us on Instagram and Twitter at GBCAM Network, so you won't miss any information on what's going on with us right here at GBKM. Now, still Black History Month, we're still celebrating our history, still embracing our cultures and histories and learning more about ourselves and what has created our Black community today that we see today. Now, every week I've been giving a little Black history fact every show, just so we're not leaving this month not knowing anything about our history, especially since it's literally Black History Month. Like, what are we doing, right? So this show, we have another fact for you. We're gonna talk about Afriqueville. Now, we talk a lot about, the Black Wall Street in America, but we don't talk about a lot of Black Canadian history here and how the Black community were able to build their own communities and build lives for themselves here in Canada. Now, Afriqueville was a primarily Black community located on the outskirts of Halifax. Now, the first records of a Black presence in Afriqueville date back to 1848, and it continued to exist for 150 years after that. Of course, over that time, hundreds of individuals and families lived there and built a thriving, close-knit community. There were stores, a school, a post office, and the Seaview United Baptist Church, which was Afriqueville's spiritual and social center. Now, unfortunately, discrimination and poverty presented many challenges for the community of people in Afriqueville. The city of Halifax refused to provide many amenities that other Haligonians took for granted, such as sewage, access to clean water, and garbage disposal. I mean, I think we take that for granted today. Could you imagine you don't even have those services available to you within your community, and you're begging the city to provide it for you, and it's landing on deaf ears? Well, basically, residents who had paid taxes and they took pride in their homes and the community they built asked the city to provide these basic services on numerous occasions. The city then only compounded the problem by building many undesirable developments in the area around Afriqueville, including an infectious disease hospital, we've seen that before in history, a prison, and a dump. The destruction of Afriqueville took several years. Initially, residents who could prove they owned their land were offered payment equal to the value of their houses. Residents without proof, like some without deeds to their home, even though they had lived there with their families on the site for generations, were offered a measly $500. Those who resisted relocation could have their lands confiscated by the city, and there were also some accounts of bribery and intimidation being used against residents to force them from the neighborhood. In the end, despite resistance from a lot of residents, all of them relocated, and the last remaining Afriqueville home was destroyed in January of 1970. Now, of course, there was an apology in 2010 about what happened, but it just, okay, like why? You know when people apologize years later, like, oh, so sorry that this happened, but then there's nothing to like rectify it afterwards. It kind of feels like that apology was just to save face, just to say, I said sorry, what else do you want from us type of thing. Because now we don't, Afriqueville didn't reborn, wasn't reborn after that. After it was destroyed and that was the end of it. But that just gives you a little slice of history as to what was going on in Canada. While we learn a lot about what's going on with our neighbors down south and during Black History Month, it's important that we also recognize what's happened right here on this land. And even when we think about the sewage or the no access to clean drinking water, that's still happening to certain communities today in Canada. So it kind of puts things into perspective that yes, we're still fighting for ourselves, but we're also fighting for others as well. That as we continue to fight for our acknowledgement of the struggles that we went through, and we continue to fight for our history to be told, we're also fighting for other communities too, mainly the Indigenous community here in Canada. Even though it is Black History Month, I know that, we also still need to remember what it means that if we get our needs met, or if our fight is heard and our prayers are answered, or our asks and wants are answered, then future generations and other communities will benefit from that too. And I think that that's a win. So we keep fighting for the future of our generations and for the future of our communities at large. So there's a little Black history fact for this week. Now, this week's topic of conversation, our chat for this week, is around classism versus racism, which is stopping us from progressing. Now, this is kind of a touchy subject, I think some might say, but I think it's important that we dive into it, because then we really get to the root, if possible, get to the root of a lot of the issues that are facing the Black community, especially here in Canada, even just specifically here in Toronto. And we get to the root of just understanding what we need to do ourselves within our own community to help us progress more, that we recognize that these are the things and hurdles that we have to overcome, sure, but let's find a way that we can build our community up despite the hurdles, despite the adversity that we're facing. And I didn't think of any better guest to have than our very own president of GBKM, Mr. Kenny Bazwaye, to join me to discuss classism versus racism. So please welcome again to the Chat Up Show, Kenny. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful.
Good, good. Are you ready to get into this conversation today?
Oh yes. It's a deep one.
Yes, it's a deep one, and I'm going to dive right in. We know in Toronto, Canada, as of 2021, 51.5% of the population are members of racialized groups.
Correct.
We then think, okay, within that, we know that what we have as Black people, the struggles that we face as Black people, even just in the GTA alone, we know what our communities are, working with. We know what our communities are doing to try to strive, I think is the best way to put it. But there's still so much that's holding us back. Now, when we think of what's holding us back, the first thing that pops to mind is what? Racism, right? But then there's also the classism side of it, where within that racism, the oppressive powers that be want to keep us also within the poverty line, that they don't want us to excel, if you will. They don't want to see us succeed financially, to build the generational wealth that we talk about wanting to build so much, that there's so many things that are stopping and blocking us from getting there. Would you agree, Kenny?
Oh yes, I very much agree with what you just mentioned. However, it's a lot more than that, in my own opinion. It's a lot more than that. We have a long way to go, in my own submissive opinion, as a community. Just like the topic says, how can you, the question would be overall, the question that a lot of us have not gotten an answer for is, which one is really affecting us more?
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, which one is affecting us?
Because we have some of us that are quote unquote privileged, and then they may feel that they are on the next class, on the next level. And what is the next class? What's the next level? Mm-hmm. And then how can that metamorphose into something that I would call dominant effects that will now impede or enhance the community growth at large? Mm-hmm. Which one is more dangerous? Which one is more deadly? How do we weigh the scale? What do we tackle first? Mm-hmm. Can we tackle them both simultaneously, or is one useless? Is one really? So for me, they go hand in hand. And I think we should start, while at the same time tackling racism, we should also tackle classism. Yes, by the way, classism is not just only for black people. Classism is also for Caucasians, for other people, but I think we should tackle them side by side because sometimes, Elizabeth, you will be shocked that black people can also be a racist.
Classist.
Let me even use the word
okay.
racist. You know, because you'll find out that an African person will say, that's a Caribbean guy. A Caribbean guy, or you African. And how do you explain that?
But, well, isn't that just prejudice as opposed to racist, would you say?
Well, we can use any word to. The bottom line is there is a disagreement somewhere. There is a disagreement somewhere, you know. You know, when you say classism is like prejudice against or in a favor of people belonging to particular social class. So now let's analyze the word favor. That's where the problem is. So if you even talk of racism, you will see that they're similar. They're similar because, well, let's forget what it's called. Let's focus on the end product.
It's othering.
So if you are depriving me, no matter the magnitude of what you are depriving, as long as you are depriving me, it's the same thing. So we have a lot of work to do when it comes to this.
I hear that, you know, fighting it alongside, side by side, fighting classism and racism at the same time. And you mentioned, like, how do we know which one's more detrimental to our community? It's Black History Month, so this conversation is going to be centered around the Black community. Let's just start there. I want to preface this conversation with that yes, there are a lot of other communities, and, you know, classism isn't just a Black issue. It's a global issue. I mean, poverty has no race, but just because it's Black History Month, that's going to be the center. But just know that we recognize that this is something that deeply impacts all communities. It's a global problem. Okay. I mean, the UN is still working on it since they wrote the list that they were going to combat poverty, like in by 2010 or 2015. So it's still an issue globally. But Black History Month, so we're focusing on Black community. Classism and racism, which one is more, you mentioned, deadly? Folks will argue that racism, hands down.
Yeah, but the problem is, even if you argue it's racism, and I agree in part, but look at it this way. If I am depriving you as your own brother because I think I'm, quote unquote, I'm the elite, or I'm of a different class, what good am I doing to you? I think that depending on the scenarios, they can be equal. They can be equal when it comes to deadliness. Depending on the scenario, there are people where you have the criteria, you have what it takes. Let's take, for lack of a better example, to do a job, and you apply for that job. For some reason, because you are not in that class, you're not getting that job. Now, when somebody that is in that class gets a job and they are not qualified, now there's what we call domino effect. Now, the person is not able to administer those services or do those jobs that he's supposed to do. Let's say it's a job to take care of the black people or the sick people. So we all suffer. So I feel like we are paying a lot of attention to racism, and we're not paying more attention to classism, and it's a cancer. Classism is a cancer. It's eating us deeply. There are a lot of people that used to live in one neighborhood because of one privileges or the other, they moved. Now they now shop somewhere that doesn't even look like them. You put the money of their shop into some, because nobody's going to drive 2 hours to go buy milk. Now you're not buying that milk in another store that is in the neighborhood where you moved into, where the people don't even look at you, they look like you, and the money does not even circulate in your economy at all, in your community at all. So there's a lot of minute moving parts to this that we need to look.
Okay, let's start there. I want to start there. When someone grows up in a community that is underprivileged, that, you know, can often be seen as forgotten about by the government, right? And then whatever, they work hard, they pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and they find a way to make enough money that they can move to a more affluent neighborhood where the chances of their kids going to a better school are higher, where chances of better health care is higher, where chances of just receiving the services and needs are met. Like services and needs are met higher than they were in the previous neighborhood. And instead of thinking, now I'm in a position where I can afford to take care of myself and my family, now I can look back at my community and say, what can I do to bring it up to a standard where everyone else will have a more level playing field to reach where I am today? Would you say that we're seeing more of that now with newer generations, that they're looking to bring their communities up with them as they rise? Or do you think that that's where we're kind of stalling and that we need to see more of? Instead of focusing on, getting acceptance or getting a seat at one table, we build our own.
You see, this we are saying there's pros and cons to this. I'll tell you, one will argue, if I don't leave my neighborhood, I am the richest person in that area, everybody's going to come asking me for money and I'm going to go broke the next morning.
Yeah.
That would be an argument, and somebody may say that that's a very valid argument. Somebody will also say that, well, if you are in that community, the community made you, they didn't kill you, why would they kill you now that you have made?
Nipsey Hussle.
So if you put yourself in the middle, you can say, okay, well, I'm not trying to suck and blow at the same time. I'm just trying to state the obvious, or what will go through people's mind. However, this is my take now. The reason why a lot of people will flock to you is because people of your caliber are very few in the community. And those people that are supposed to say, I'm moving out. So if you are the only one that stay, of course, the demand will be higher than the supply. They are going to eat you up. That's number one. Number two, I think the solution should be we all should have one mindset to stay so that we can all lift the burden together. But the big challenge here is the spirit of acceptance. Some of us do it because we feel that if we don't do those things, we are not perceived as elite, or we are not on the other side when it comes to class. And our counterpart will not accept us and give us a seat on the table. So it depends on individuals, but I'm speaking overall in a large scale. Now, if you ask me which does more harm, staying in a community that makes you or living in the community. When I mean stay, I mean not only just living there, but doing business there, exchanging money, grooming people, becoming the light, becoming a motivation to somebody, your next door neighbor. I believe that it's difficult to do, but I believe it's the ultimate price to pay for us to go to the next level.
But do you necessarily have to live in the community to build it up?
What is happening, in my own submissive opinion, a lot of people have spoken to us, spoken about us when they don't feel our pain. The reason they don't feel our pain, they don't live with us, they don't know what we do, what we eat. There's little or more you can do when you really don't wear the shoe. You can apply solutions. That's why we want to sit on the table. Because so that we can speak to our own pain. You can perceive it, you can sense it, but you can't feel it unless you put your leg in that shoe. That's why, for me, I don't accept this new word, this buzzword that they're using, inclusion. Because I believe that sitting on the dining table does not give you the license to eat the food. Being part of that food, eating that food, part of that process is what we are talking about. So often time when we clamor for change, they give us some buzzwords. In my own submissive opinion, the goalpost is just being moved. It's not fixed. There could be a lot of grants, a lot of money dishing out here and there. The question is, the core solution need to be, the core value and the solution, the long-term and short-term solution is what need to be discussed. Such as programs like yours, where we need to bring the hard topic out, where we need to look at ourselves and say, are we part of the problem? The question is this, are we part of our problem, or is just the counterpart that is only problematic?
Or is it just a result of the problem and we can't do anything about it?
Well, how long can you cry wolf? Because if you stay in the dark for too long, you start seeing. And if you choose not to see, maybe you blame it on the radio host.
Don't blame it on the radio host. Don't do that.
So what I'm trying to say here now is that, yeah, we are lucky. We have great people. We have great people that have really suffered, like person like Jane Augustine. I love her. And many other people that have labored for us. Let us toe her footsteps. Let us do things that she did that worked. Those ones that she did that maybe that didn't work, let us avoid that. Let us enhance on those things that work. Let us think outside the box and foster solutions, profile solutions, and go after it. More often time, we tend to see a lot of us just we just cry. We start talking about what happened to Martin Luther King. It's fine to know that, but Martin Luther King is gone. He has done his part. What part have you done? Are you doing? What are we going to talk about you when you are gone? When you now become the next Martin Luther King, what do I have? When you now become the next Jane Augustine, what are you doing to change the narrative? Now that you know that we are at the short end of the stakes.
Okay, I want to backtrack a little. Talking about the seat at the table, just because I think this really kind of sums up the whole classism versus racism issue, is that you said just because you have a seat at the table doesn't mean that you're invited to eat the food. Doesn't mean that you're invited to partake in what's being shared. Doesn't mean you have a hand in the pot of gold. Sure, you can sit there, and because of your class maybe, or your elitism, that's allowed you to enter certain spaces, allowed you to be in certain places that maybe before, if you were in a certain socioeconomic level, you wouldn't be allowed. But because of the racism, would you say that that then puts a ceiling to how far you can go?
Okay, first of all, let me quickly say this. It's important we all know this. We are not saying that you should. A lot of people will say, oh, don't look at the color, don't look at the color. We are not here to say that don't look at the color. Look at me and give me what belongs to me or what I'm entitled to despite the color. I don't expect you to be blind. It's not practical for you to be blind to color. Like you don't know I'm black. I'm black, period. Look despite the color. That's number one. Number two, if you want to be very motivational, you can say, well, the fact that you have a foot in, you're already at the table, you are close to the plate, you may eat one day. That's another narrative that you can explain. But now it now depends on the individual. That's where classism comes in.
Yeah.
That's why we are tying this to classism now. Now the person may now decide, you know what, I'm opportune. Jane Augustine was born not in Canada, in an island. She was raised by an old woman. She came to this country. She was a nanny, like a house help. She became a teacher, became a principal. You know what I mean? She broke those barriers. She just did not sit down and say, you know what? I'm limited to this. I'm not going to do that. Now the question here is this. That individual, just like Jane Augustine, have a role to play in this and say, am I going to move on to a so-called elite neighborhood? Am I going to now benefit my people? Am I going to speak for my people or speak alone? Because see, the toxicity, how do you say that?
Toxicity.
On it is that, imagine you have a room of 20 people, they are all a different color. And you are just one person and your opinion is different. Of course they are going to swallow you up. How many of us have the endurance, the perseverance to keep pushing till we make a difference? That's number one. Number two, the spirit of I want to be on top alone. Should be looking to where some of us are in and we change the padlock. Nobody can come in anymore because we want everybody to look onto us.
Like we want to be inspired, like they want to be an inspiration, but no one can come take their place or join them at the table, right?
Some of us will take position. I remember I was reading the bio of Jane Augustine when she was given some position, she refused. It was a big position. She refused in the school system. And because when I spoke to her, I remember we had a conversation one time. She goes, Ken, why would I take that position when I know that I can do better. I know I'm better than I know I can impact my people more. Why will I take that position to just gratify my ego? Say I am the first black person to do this, whereas the position is dormant.
I think we've seen that a lot, that inclusivity, where you don't have any real power. You're just a figurehead, just to say, hey, at least we have someone of a diverse background taking up this position. You can't say that we're not for affirmative action, or you can't say that we're racist not wanting to hire people from certain backgrounds. But is it true diversity if the people you're hiring have no power to make a difference? Then what are you diversifying for?
So my thing here is that, just like you've said, is that we really have to sit down and think and say, what is our priorities? How do we get around it? Then we should also understand that sometimes when it comes to like our voice is being heard, it can be a blanket in a way of shifting the goalpost. So I take, for example, if the goalpost was actually demolished, there will be no racism, or it will be close to nothing as we speak. The goalpost is never demolished, it's been moved. There is still slavery, there is still racism, there is still all, it's just modified. We must accept the fact, number one, that one, there's a strategy that is being modified. Number two, we must also accept the fact that we're part of the problem. We have a role. This is just my opinion, it's not the opinion of GBKM. We have a role to play in it. Okay, let's take locally here. A lot of us, I'll take this area for example, where we are broadcasting from now. I was asking somebody very close to me. She doesn't even know who the MP is, who the MPP is. She has never voted, even though she's a Canadian, she never voted. She felt it's a waste of time. She don't go to meetings. But yet, policy are made every day that in fact it affect her, affect the children. Policy are made every time that things are changing and directly affecting her income, her revenue, her existence. But yet, she don't want to be part of the process that make that policy. So we have a whole lot of things to look to change.
Okay, I want to take that voter situation. I think there's almost this consensus that we feel so oppressed, we feel as if our power has been taken away, that we feel that we can't make the changes necessary, because either way, who's going to listen? Who's listening? That we've been fighting all these years, we've been crying all these years, we've been trying all these years, and there hasn't been that much change, there hasn't been difference. As you said, the goalpost keeps changing. What then will you say to then inspire people to be like, get up, stand up, let's remember that we do still have power?
This is my opinion. I thank God for you coming up with this topic, racism and classism. This is my opinion. We have to start, while we are paying attention on the big things, we have to start immediately looking at the small things. Immediately at the small things. And now, the people we celebrate in our community, we have to, our thought process has to change. Number one. Number two, we have to understand that it takes a block to build a mansion. One block will start it. We have to understand that a tree cannot make a forest, but a tree can start a forest. Let me say it again. A tree cannot make a forest. And I'm borrowing that from somebody that I'm very close to that said it. I think it was Dr. Loretta Agboro that said that word. A tree cannot make a forest, but a tree can start a forest. So now, how does a tree start a forest? You need a lot of things. A lot of parts are involved. You need the land. The land needs to be filtered. It needs to be watered. We have to be part of that process. Now, for example, you see somebody, I'll take a common example now. Our priorities, a lot of us don't have, so many of us don't have life insurance. But yeah, we'll go to LCBO and buy the most expensive liquor. I don't want to advertise any company for free.
No free promotion.
We'll go there and buy it and drink and so on and so forth. But yeah, we don't have life insurance. But statistics and research has identified that that's one way to transfer wealth from generation to generation. How many of us are involved? So it looks like I'm saying a lot of things at the same time, because I know that this show is 1 hour. I'm just trying to touch everything at the same time. From class to racism, ideology, thought process, vetting process, It's, to be honest, look at it. You can argue that, yes, the crime black on black is high, but it's being sponsored. You can argue that it's being sponsored. That's another argument, but you have the choice to decide. But somebody will say you don't have the choice when you are poor, you are hungry, you are this, you are that, you are that. Once you identify that this is why, you now know the agenda of the opponent. So what are you doing now? What next? And what? Then what?
Yes, because that is true. That it's that when you're, there's the argument that so many people are backed in a corner that they just accept that they accept the scraps, that they accept the very thing that is probably going to harm the community later on, because they're looking at, okay, I need to make sure that I'm good. I need to make sure that I survive or my family survives. Do you think that that's where a lot of the breakdown is that we lost the sense of community and it's turned into I need to make sure that I'm good. I need to make sure that I have a seat at the table, instead of thinking I need to make sure that I'm opening the door for others to join me at the table?
You're very correct. You see, when it comes to joining you at the seat of the table, there are different levels to it. There are people that make it easy for you to come in and join them. There are people that are designed to create more seats so that you more can be coming in. Because sometimes you can't allow people in when there's no chance, there's no room to sit down. So now when you are in the position of gatekeeping, that's your job to now know what to do. When you are on the top, you are the HR, you are the one hiring. You are the one now giving them the seat to sit down. You have to now strike a balance. But be mindful, I'm going to speak very neutral now. If you tilt to the left, to black, or to the right, to white, whichever way, then we're talking about racism. Remember, racism can be black and white. So all we ask for is balance. We want equal share of the cake. We don't want to cheat nobody. We don't want to cheat. We don't want nobody to cheat us. However, we must understand and agree that we have work to do and we have a role in it. If we go south, we have a role. If we go west, we have a role. We have a role in it. There's enough blame. We have part in that blame. I came to Canada as an immigrant, and I have invested in myself. Here I am today. Success is planning. We must understand that success is planning.
Yeah.
So if you don't plan, and then, for example, for lack of better example, you are in church 7 days a week. You don't go to work. But you are praying to have a mansion. Well, good luck. So, Black history, for me, is not enough. Black History Month is not enough at all. And for lack of a better example, this month is one of the shortest. Black History Month should be an ideology. Black History Month should be a day-to-day living. We should be aware of who we are, and we should be intentional on our daily activities. Now, see, this is the way I break Blackism. There's what I call Blackism. Because if there's no black, there's no black month. The way I break Blackism is personal responsibility in daily endeavor, proud. If you apply this strategy of being proud, personal responsibility in daily endeavor as a black person, the goalposts soon now will be demolished and nobody can move it no more.
What do you mean by that, though?
So, personal responsibility in daily endeavor is when I don't put myself first. When I have the sense of I'm responsible for your welfare, you are responsible for mine. When I'm making decisions, I don't want to make decisions that just impact me today and my family are happy and I move to one location where we call classism. But when I make that decision knowing that, no, I want to sound like Jean Augustine. I don't want this position to glorify my ego, but I want to remain where I am, where I can impart my community, the grassroots, and everybody where we all can enjoy. That's personal responsibility in daily endeavor.
Okay, yes. But then, when you're in survival mode, it's hard to see that, though. Wouldn't you say?
Okay, I will say this for those that don't know. I came from Africa, Nigeria. I came from, I would say, my family are not elites. I understand what is poverty, what is need, what is want. There are decisions you make when you are in need that ordinarily you won't have made. And I've been there, I'm still there, I know it. However, you have to be able to censor what is detrimental to the longevity of the black race. You have to be able to censor the hidden agenda, the plan. You have to be able to know some of them that you can do. Because really and truly, you have to live today to be to impact somebody tomorrow.
Yep.
So I understand that fact. But your sense of judgment has to be rooted in pride, personal responsibility in daily endeavor.
I think that's a great place to take a quick break. But don't worry, when we return, we'll continue the conversation on classism versus racism, which is stopping us from progressing. Stay tuned. Canada's #1 African barbecue, the Suya Spot. Serving and satisfying your suya needs from multiple locations across the GTA, including Scarborough, downtown Toronto, North York, Woodbridge, and Mississauga. Also located in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Visit any location today or stay home and order through
DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Skipped Dishes.
For more information, check out our website at www.thesuyaspot.com or call the toll-free line at +1 866 448 7892. The Suya Spot. You built it, now use it. Hello and welcome back to the Chat Up Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Eloidy, and I'm joined here with a very special guest, Kenny Bazwaye, as we discuss whether classism versus racism, which is stopping us from progressing. Now, before we went on the break, we were kind of talking about when you're in survival mode, you do make certain decisions that are necessary to your survival because you need to make it to the next day, you need to survive. But it's also important that when you are making those decisions, that you still think of how is this going to impact my overall community, not just me. Now, let's think about those certain decisions, because I want to still bring it back to the classism discussion, that a lot of people are making certain decisions so that they can eat. They want to eat. We want to eat. We want to be wealthy too. We want to make sure that our future generations are set up. And that's not bad. I wouldn't say that that's a wrong
but
idea.
I disagree to a degree with you. When you say you want to eat what? Eat your future? The question is they want to eat. You want to eat. Yes, because you want to eat a poison? You want to eat. Yes, because you want to eat your offspring? So you have to decide, what are you eating? Agreed, you want to eat. I want to eat. Do I eat today and eat my offspring? Or do I eat today to eat another day?
Of course, you're not speaking literally eating your offspring. Like speaking
Well,
as in like what I'm eating today may not help my future.
Okay, so when I mean offspring, let me explain what I mean by offsprings. If I know that this decision I'm going to make that will fill my wallet up and I'm eating, I'm satisfied, we deprive my people, my community at large, to an extent that it may even kill them.
Yeah.
Will I still eat it? Will I still do it? That's what I mean. So sometimes we do things, not literally as I have said it, but if you look at it on the long run, you narrow it down, you zero it out, you will realize that, this decision I've made has stopped a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by eat. We want to eat. I know that a hungry man is an angry man. But to what degree?
That's interesting. And there's actually, I don't want to name drop them, but there's a certain movement right now that's getting a lot of backlash because of that very thing. It started as a movement to help the community, but then once their pockets started getting lined, all of a sudden it was difficult to understand where the money tracing.
I'm going to come in with that. What a lot of us must understand is this. Every time the black people have a formidable organization, it is taken out. Ask yourself why. The leader is either bought or they are killed. Because nothing just happened ordinarily. So we must understand that format doesn't work no more. Because every time you form a group, you now are now visible, just like they call it visible minority. Once you are not visible, they identify, whoever identified the leader, everybody have a prize.
They're a target. I mean, we've seen it. A lot of activists
So
have been killed.
those movements, I wasn't part of it. I didn't support it. I didn't ever endorse it because I could tell the end from the beginning. What we need to do, in my own submissive opinion, is to become a little puzzled, a little power in our own corner. So that by the time, should anything happen for us to come together, we become the force. You hold your own economical power, you hold your own voice, you hold your expertise. I do that. We encourage and empower interns. I don't want to sit on welfare. I'm not throwing shit on people on welfare. If need be for you to be a welfare, so be it. That's why it's designed. But I don't want to sit there because I just want to take advantage, because at the long run I'm doing myself. By the time I empower myself, you empower yourself. We become a puzzled. A little puzzle on its own. Should they come together, then you know that the picture has a face. But when we at the beginning form together, I can tell you all our leaders that have been killed, all our leaders that have been hijacked. So if somebody tell you there's a group and at the end, where was the money coming from, you cannot tell that. It could be that they are hijacked. It could be that somebody come in. It could be that the mission statement is changed. So we must, that's what I mean by we must be intentional. That's what I mean. We must be intentional in Blackism. There's what I call Blackism, and this is Black History Month. Without Blackism, there's no Black history.
Okay, let's go back to the question then. Do you then think that it's our own classism that is stopping us from progressing as Black people?
I said we are part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's how I put it. We are part of the problem. We are part of the problem because some certain decisions, not all of them, are in our hands. Just like you said, some of us want to eat. And if you are watching, you can comment too. We want to hear from you on Facebook and so on, share. Because just like you said, some of us want to eat. All of us want to eat.
Yeah.
But the question is, eat what? What do you want to eat? Do you want to just go to your 9 to 5, come home, shower your children, watch TV and go to bed? Or you want to go to 9 to 3, use 2 hours to build your community? Go to the community meeting, become an executive, do something that can change. Or you just want to eat all your hours. What do you want to eat? Some of us are very good. We have the megaphones to complain and identify issues. In our closed door, what are we doing? One time I had a meeting, and in that meeting, the Minister for Youth and the Justice Youth in Incarceration, something, justice system was there. He happens to be a colored man. In that meeting, I know Elizabeth Cortin, the police officer, was there. Sarah was a bunch of us there. And when it's time for me to talk, the man was saying that they have been investing in our community and there's not much of return investment. So I goes, you don't have return investment because you have the same people that have been the face of the community for 50 years, for 20 years, they are still the face. Have you asked yourself why they are still the face? Number 2, did you ask yourself if they are really grassroots? They come when you are around. They come take pictures when you are supposed to be around. They come when the governor, the president, the mayor is around. Have you asked yourself who are really the people in the community? Who is the president of Nigeria Canadian Association? Who is the president of JCA? Who is actually doing the job? Who is folding their slow? That is not politically incorrect. Have you asked yourself, yes, your money or whatever you are investing will not go nowhere because they are in your friends' hands. And you all play golf.
No, I kind of want to segue a little bit. This is a question that I think has been, it's been brought up a lot, but hasn't really been discussed at length. But do you think that we will only progress when we stop seeking acceptance from certain people, certain groups, certain spaces?
Come again?
Do you think the only time we will progress as a community is when we stop seeking acceptance from certain groups, certain spaces, certain peoples?
That's part of it. But the fundamental part is to unlearn many things. In my opinion, we have to unlearn many things and learn new things. A lot of us, our mind has been trained to accept some certain things and perceive it as growth. We have been trained to accept some certain things and perceive it as success. We have been trained to accept some certain things to perceive it as beauty. We have a whole bunch of things, first of all, we have to learn, and then learn new things. And then we'll start appreciating things for what they are and valuing things for what they are. Now, you know, pride attracts value, and you cannot value things unless you appreciate it. Where you appreciate is where your interest is where your vested is where you put money, is where you promote, is what you do. That's the genesis. Once that starts happening, we start understanding. For example, I was in a panel where we were choosing a lot of people. We're supposed to screen some people to get an award or support people that are screening some people to get an award. When I got the list, the first thing I said, these are the same list for the first 15 years that I've been getting an award in this community, in that very community. I said, by the time you ask the people that are nominated and why they are nominated, they don't even know. I said, let's create a page where person can actually write 500 words or some words to say why I am nominated. At least you put thought into it. Don't just nominate him. So our thought process, we need to change a lot of things what we value. You understand what I'm saying? I was talking to you off air just now. You will see a brother that sell something. The brother is supporting you as an artist, just for lack of a better example. You go and make video and talk about some liquor that is expensive, you're popping that, and that brand that you are promoting on your video is don't even know that you exist. The little guy that is supporting you, coming to your show, supporting you, giving you money, you don't even mention his name. And when he does approach you, you will be like, you need to pay.
And I think that's a byproduct of classism, though, because it's what we see and value as being elite or being so sought after that once you have it, people will respect you, people will like you, people will acknowledge you more. That if you're seen with this bag, for example, we know which bag I'm talking about, so I'm not going to name drop, but we know which bag I'm talking about that could build, like, you could buy a house for the cost of one of these bags. But if you have it, you're seen as all of a sudden this symbol of like wealth, this symbol, this inspirational being that, oh, they did it. I want to also be able to wear these bags. I want to also be able to wear these brands so that other people can see me and think, yes, that they have arrived, that they've made it. Do you think that that is what is contributing mostly to our downfall of not building generational wealth for ourselves, not building up our communities because we're investing in things?
Before I even respond to that, let me read what Evelyn said on Facebook.
Okay, yes, let's.
Evelyn Osazowa said, and the only thing that will give us that power and leadership is pen and paper by promoting education in our community. You see, let me quickly address what Evelyn is saying, in my own opinion. Evelyn is very correct. The only problem is that our definition of education is impaired.
How so?
I'll tell you why I think so. I came from Nigeria. In Nigeria, I was never taught Nigeria history. I was taught American history and other history. It was here I came and started learning about Nigeria history. And you call that education.
That's sad.
Number one. Now, the social education is already polluted. It's been polluted. What we learn and accept today, that's why you see somebody want to change their skin. Somebody want to make up. My question, who are you making up to? So, just like last week, we were talking about people trying to fight to put Black history, to put things. I said, when they put in the school, what are they going to read? So that goes to what Evelyn is saying. We need to educate people, education, but we have to understand the fundamental part of education. Because really and truly, school was created by human beings. Yeah. There was no school at the beginning of the world. That's the education right there. How can we see who we are and value who we are? That's the genesis of it all. And then now what she said can come to play, where we're now writing our own story. Because now we already know who we are, we value who we are, our perspective. You would think a lot of children in Toronto today will be doing a lot of videos that go viral about Jean Augustine. Because she has done a lot of work. No, very few. And I commend those guys that are doing it. A lot of us are busy doing other stuff.
And I think it's what we place our priority. Like, bare children will know Beyonce's name before they know Jean Augustine's name across the globe, even in Canada. Like, granted, she has done a lot for the Black community. Now, this isn't to shade on any of the artists or entertainers, let's say, that have done and broken glass ceilings and entered spaces that would not have been even an option for Black people 50 years ago alone. We can recognize that, but we can also recognize that we know who's putting these people in positions of power. We know who's elevating these folks so that we only see these types of people as role models, as opposed to our grassroots organizers, people that we can actually have face-to-face conversation, that will actually know us. How many of you can say Beyonce knows you personally?
And you see, the big part of it is this. One, we argue that for you to be able to capture a monkey, you must act like a monkey. The truth here is that some of these people that we'll celebrate today that have done well, where they had to play some certain game, for lack of a better word. They have to play some certain game to get to where they are. What I value and what I treasure is the fact that despite that game, they still hold their own together and still did what they did.
Yeah.
That's what I value. I'm not saying that you are going to be accepted if you show your card or your game. I'm not saying that nobody's going to bring you in when they know that you are going to fight against them or you're going to change their narratives. No one is going to bring you in. We understand that it's not easy. But what I'm saying is that the fundamental part of life is we must educate ourselves organically first. Hence, that's why Evelyn is talking about pen. Pen and paper, we have to start documenting our process. Many times on the grassroots, let's bring it to the grassroots now. Many times on the grassroots, when we want to celebrate people, we bring people that is not even in our class to celebrate. When you want a speaker right now, you know what you're going to do? You're going to bring some big person from somewhere to come speak to you guys. Whereas the real speaker, the person that is feeling your pain on a daily basis is among you. You won't allow him or her to speak.
Because it doesn't give the same sense of, we made it. You know what? I want to talk about that. Because I think that that's what's really stopping us. That we want to say we made it so bad. But like, made it according to who? If we look around us, have we truly made it? And even down to education. Education shouldn't just be like, oh, we know the facts. It should be that we know the facts, and this is how we know then. This is giving us the blueprint to do better. If we are educated, there's so many people that are so highly educated, they have all the degrees in the world, but if you ask them one thing to apply it today, they don't know how.
Just to piggyback on what you're saying, a lot of people see education as master of all. Depending on what you're educated on. I've seen a lot of PhD that could not even pair their phone to Bluetooth in their car. A lot of PhD holders that cannot pair their phone to their Bluetooth in their car. They are calling me to pay for them. So we must understand there's area of expertise. But what we are talking about here is self-awareness, self-education, humankind, the way we live. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about how you feel, how you know, how you don't put in yourself first. The education to know that your pride, personal responsibility in daily endeavor is tied directly to the apron of your community growth. That's the education we're talking about now. And now the education, as Evelyn said, to document. For example, I came from a highly, very rich cultural background, but a lot of them are oral. They are kept orally. Now we're trying to see how do we document it, how do we format it, and so on and so forth. So if that's the area, and that's one thing that I do, I take pride in that. I am not only saying that our counterpart, for lack of, blanketing a name and not pointing fingers, that there are no good things coming from Israel. There are so many good things coming from Egypt and Israel anywhere. I'm saying as a human being that was willing to grow and expand your horizon and impact your community at large, you must pick those good things and do away with those ones that are not acceptable, that will not allow you to grow. So I'm not going to say if my counterpart, for example, are very good in technology, I've been to the moon and sky and everywhere, and my own level is I'm still researching how to make toothpick. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to copy that from them. I'm going to copy those good ones for them, but overall, I must tie whatever I'm doing directly to the unity, the growth of our community at large.
You know what? That just inspired me. I was recently listening to this podcast. Someone was talking about how we, as a community, we are trying to emulate a certain other community. But maybe it's time to think and realize that maybe, and this was in the sense of patriarchy, that maybe within the Black community, it's not patriarchy that's going to help us overcome or progress. That maybe we realize that we truly are of a matriarchal community, and that there's so many women and females that have paved the way for us to advance and to work. But for so long, we're stuck in the sense that this is the way the world is, and that's why we have to conform to it. It's the conformity part that I'm like, we need to do away from.
You see what you're saying? You see how I put it? I put it this way. If I choose not to dwell and expand in what I'm organically made of, and I'm dwelling in yours, I will be a student forever.
Yeah.
So many times we are studying democracy in Africa now. Look at where we are. There's a lot of things we are studying that you can tell that maybe it's not compatible. So that's where the beginning is. That's why I said, remember, I said we need to unlearn a lot of things and learn new stuff. How can you be cooking rice in your kitchen and say, what are you cooking? You're not telling me you're cooking rice, you're telling me you're cooking foreign rice. What do you concern me concern foreign? Why are you telling me it's foreign rice? That's too much information for me. The fact that you are now telling me that this is foreign rice, it's crazy. I'm not interested in if it's foreign rice. And who said my rice is not good? Why do you have to add foreign rice? You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So these are the things we're talking about.
Yep.
You go to Africa, I'll take Nigeria for example, you bring waters, as long as it's Canadian water. The water we buy for less than $1 for 24 here, it's celebrated over there. Whereas we have a lot of waters there that are not polluted, that we can drink. We need to unlearn many things.
And I think, I'm going to say it, we say counterparts, but really, I think because we're so holding on to proximity to whiteness as being revered as the best thing possible. That's why we have colorism, that the closer to white we are, the better it is. That's why we still have bleaching issues in Africa right now, where people are still seeing, like, you see so many bleaching creams available for sale. Why?
Let's go to what Mr. Sonny Rabo, watching from Facebook, said. You have it there. You can read it too if you have it. If not, I can read it here. I think this is very powerful. Mr. Sonny Rabo is one of the powerhouse. I've been hearing of him when I was a child in the media. He's one of the media group. I think he's watching from Lagos.
Right.
So let's read what he said. Thank you for joining us today. We are yet to truly understand the importance of self-worth and how leadership and followership can leverage on its value. Sorry, my eyes. Leadership, followership can leverage on its value to society and humanity. Education is supposed to expose the mind of the common good of all and how quality is nurtured in place of inerty. Is it inerty? Inanity. Inanity. Sorry, my eyes, man.
Yeah,
I apologize. You read it. You can read it there.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it better than the way he put it. We must understand. Thank you, sir. That's well put. We must understand that education is supposed to expose already what we have.
Education and self-worth too.
So, what is self-worth? The process of you knowing your self-worth is education there on its own.
That's true.
So, some of the problem that we have is that we're saying Black History Month and racism. We have a lot of work internally to do. We have a lot of work. Let's take generically, because I'm very grassroots. You go to our public circles, settings, celebrations. You're there. You're a gentleman. You're working 9 to 5. You have only $1 you support with what you have. Somebody comes that doesn't even work. Nobody knows their source of income. All of a sudden, they are now the hero of that event. You're not questioning. No question is asked. And the other day I was doing a presentation and I asked, if two people take the TTC, for those that are listening international, TTC is our public transportation here in Canada. Two of them, one of them is just going to drink alcohol, the other one is going to look for a job. But one of them, the one that is going to look for a job doesn't have money to take the bus, but he took the bus anyway because that's the only chance he has to go look the bus. By the time time comes to collect the fare, he doesn't have. Who is the bad guy in the bus? The guy that doesn't have money. We must understand fundamentally, we must process people, we must look at people naturally from the eyeball, not from what they wear, not from what they drive. We must see this person as a human being. Because when we came to this earth, black or white, we all came naked. I must see you and see that value that you carry. I said, see me despite my color. I'm not asking you to be color blinded. See my color. I'm arrogantly a black man and you must accept it.
Arrogantly a black man, yes. I mean, we do live in a capitalist society, so can we truly steer away from this ideal that the more money you have, that means the more power you should be given, is I think what you were kind of giving with the example.
But that goes down to classism.
Yep.
That goes down to classism.
Yeah.
And this is why I said we have to unlearn so many things and learn new stuff. Because being successful or being rich is a class of its own. That from everything you do is a class of its own. That's why you have a first class line and I will call it second class line on the airport.
Yeah.
It's class. So when you are on that, you start enjoying it. It's very easy to be out of touch with reality. That's where the problem is with mankind. And this goes across all, like black or white or whoever you are. However, to bring it for the benefit of this topic today, I think that racism and classism should be looked upon side by side. They all work hand to hand. Because sometimes if somebody wants to manipulate you as a group of people, they'll pick somebody as a racist. They are racist. They'll pick somebody and empower that person. And then they will induce that person with classism. So it's a second level of racism to report to the real master. So my own submissive opinion on this is that classism is just like when you have a CEO and you have a manager. They all work together. They all serve one purpose.
And I mean, I'm gonna say that I wonder if we can come to a conclusion with this discussion, because as you say, they kind of do go hand in hand in a lot of situations, and it's hard to fight one without fighting the other. It's hard to examine one without examining the other, because they've been used as tools to oppress, together or separately. They've both been used as tools to oppress. They've both been used as a way to keep people down. And the world isn't so black and white that we can say that one is maybe more detrimental than the other. Of course, there are instances that can back that up for either argument. But to say overall that one is worse than the other, they kind of work together. That as you're fighting racism, you'll notice that, oh, wow, there's still classism here that I'm still having to fight as well. Or as you're fighting classism, you'll notice that, oh, wow, there's still racism to fight as well. That it's not just a black and white situation, that it's kind of a gray area.
You see, a lot of people forget when we always say House Negro. Forgive me to say that. Why do you think there was House Negro? The House Negro, there was a racist, and there was somebody that saw classism. Yep. So the House Negro is a superior class. He's still a Negro, but it's another class of Negro. And then the information gets disseminated to the House Negro. The House Negro becomes a snitch. He becomes this, and so on and so forth. I don't want to say too much because I'm fired up to say a lot, but we are on air. We, as black people, happy Black History Month in Canada, we need to get our acts together and still identify the real thing we need to identify instead of paying our attention to trivial stuff that will not benefit us in the long term. I remain your guest, Kenny Bazwai. Thank you for having me. Elizabeth, I'm always happy to join you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think that is such a strong end to today's show. That does conclude the Chat Up Show. Thank you so much for those who tuned in, and thank you to our commenters, Mr. Sunny Rabo and Ms. Evelyn Osazua, and also others who joined in the conversation that we didn't get a chance to discuss on air. But we know this Chat Up Show, literally, it's for us to chat about the things that impact us on a daily basis, for us to have the necessary conversations so that we can start seeing the ways that we can impact our communities, that we can affect change in our communities, and actually stand up and do things for ourselves and not always look to to others to help us, that maybe the help is still within ourselves. As we said, recognizing the importance of self-worth, the importance of education. This is a form of education now. I hope that you went away today from the Chat Up Show learning something new, being inspired that, hey, I do have the power within myself to make a difference, even if it's small. Don't only think big picture, as Kenny said. We got to look small too. We can start small to then work our way to the bigger pictures, to the bigger problems. Because if we try to tackle from the top, we can get burnt out and tired, and then what change have we really made? But as I said, that does conclude the Chat Up Show today. As always, you can keep up with the GBKM network in various ways. You can continue to listen and watch live 24/7 at www.gbkm.tv or www.gbkm.fm. Also, make sure to download our free app available for all iOS and Android devices. Just search GBKM and you'll be able to take us on the go with you, listen and watch live, check out past shows, upcoming shows, our breaking news, all of that good stuff, and be notified every time we go live. You can also continue to watch us on Facebook and YouTube at GBKM Network, where you can continue to join in the conversation. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at GBKM Network to keep up with us at GBKM. And you can keep up with me, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at TIS_Liz_O. Happy Black History Month. Celebrate, but also use this time to acknowledge how far we've come and how far we yet have to travel. Take care.
Canada's #1 African barbecue, the Suya Spot. Serving and satisfying your suya needs from multiple locations across the GTA, including Scarborough, downtown Toronto, North York, Woodbridge, and Mississauga. Also located in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Visit any location today or stay home and order through DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Skip the Dishes. For more information, check out our website at www.thesuyaspot.com or call the